Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're well, you amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Thursday. Thursday, baby. Thursday, you're looking absolutely amazing. I'm going to get straight into the meat and potatoes as we have a busy day. I'm going live shortly to go over the Sherlock Holmes timeline. And if you haven't seen it, then it's already been done by now because this video is coming out after that. So you may have missed it. So if you missed it after this video, go and watch that, because that will tackle the question as to whether law enforcement actually manipulated the time frame in the Idaho 4 case. But in this video, what we talked about, you will have seen, if you took notice of a video that I did yesterday, I spoke about something that Bryan Kohberger had been investigated for in the aftermath of the Idaho 4 case, which was a crime that happened before the Idaho 4 that could have actually been a prerequisite to what happened in Idaho. And it was deemed that he had not been involved in that one. So hold on a second. What in the blue monkey fuck balls is going on there? But anyway, maybe you've seen it by now. That may have triggered you to go and look yourself. You may have already seen it. Some of you will. But for those of you who didn't, let's talk about it. What am I talking about? Get on with it. It's this, which is Bryan Kohberger investigated in break-in after arrest for Idaho college murders. So for those of you who hadn't seen this already, I know what you're thinking. What? Bryan Kohberger was previously a person of interest in a 2021 home invasion 10 miles away from where he murdered 4 University of Idaho students. What? I can hear it already. Bryan Kohberger was once suspected of other crimes. After the 30-year-old was sentenced to life in prison for the 2022 murders of 4 University of Idaho students, authorities released police documents detailing his connection, or lack thereof, to an earlier break-in obtained by NBC News. I like the way they word these things, but it will all become clear in the end. In 2021, a knife-wielding assailant wearing a ski mask broke into a home in Pullman, Washington, per the Pullman Police Department records. Although no one was injured in the incident, according to an affidavit in support of a search warrant, a witness told officials that she kicked the intruder in the stomach as they fled. Pullman police began investigating the former criminology student as a potential perpetrator after he was arrested in November 2022 for the murders of Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Canodal, and Ethan Chapin that December. Although Kohberger, who was pursuing his doctorate at Washington State University, didn't reside in Pullman at the time of the intrusion, the Idaho students lived about 10 miles from the Washington home. A sergeant tasked with retracing his steps in the area filed a supplemental report obtained by the outlet, noting that Kohberger had worn a ski mask while killing the 4 students with a knife. Although the police records didn't identify the assailant's gender, the witness said their height was between 5 feet 3 inches and 5 feet 5 inches. Meanwhile, the surviving roommate in the Idaho 4 case, Dylan Mortensen, described Kohberger as 5 feet 10. Maybe she overestimated, maybe she's like a man and adds a few inches. After further investigation, Pullman official, plus she was pissed off a fucking noodle. She couldn't even remember seeing a face. She, by her own admission, didn't know what the fuck was going on, what was real, what wasn't real. So look, you're either bang straight as an arrow, know exactly what's going on, and you can be all of your information can be held as gospel, or you've got to kind of conclude that there is a possibility, a potential that maybe you're not that accurate, and something like 3 or 4 inches when you're pissed off your noodle and don't really know where you are. Frozen shock even. Who knows? Anyway, I digress. After further investigation, Pullman officials confirmed that Kohberger was no longer a person of interest in the case. As more details about Kohberger's past come to light, he is getting settled in solitary confinement in the long-term restrictive housing of J Block in the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. So yeah, it now just goes on to talk about some of the stuff that he done while he was inside, like washing his hands and shit like that. But look, can we really ignore this? Can we really ignore this? So what we're saying is, we're saying that this happens like a year before the Idaho student murders. You've got someone who goes into a property wearing a ski mask, wielding a knife, never found, nothing whatsoever, nothing. Seemingly nothing comes of it. There's nothing else to do with it. They're kicked in the stomach and leave. Bryan Kohberger is understandably, you could say understandably, brought into the fray in the aftermath of his arrest, because obviously they're thinking, well, the MO on this looks nigh on identical. The concerning thing is they ascertain that he has got nothing to do with this one. He weren't in the area. It was nothing to do with it. So what does that tell you here? It tells you that you've still got somebody who went into the property of some students or somebody wearing a ski mask and wielding a knife. So who was that then? Who was that? Is this person, they thought it was they just done it as a one-off? Literally done it as a one-off. Never to try anything of this nature ever again. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe this was a prank. I just don't understand. This is the issue that you have with the Idaho 4K. The problem is that you have here, ultimately, is that Bryan Kohberger has now pled guilty. So, we're all kind of sitting here, unless you're Nancy Grace and she thinks he is indeed plotting his appeal, which, do you know what? He could be plotting his appeal. Maybe he's going to appeal. Maybe this was strategic to pull the plug, throw the towel, knowing that would subsequently allow a load of docs to be flooded into the public that would raise some concerns, such as this sort of thing that shows you that there was already at least one person in the area who was willing to enter into the property dressed in a ski mask. I'm sure they had other clothes, but they had a ski mask on and wielding a knife, only to be kicked in the stomach. Now, what I will say is that to me seems like that could be a prerequisite to this crime, as aforementioned. Maybe the person over time become braver. Maybe they learned from their original mistakes and entered into a property with more confidence, more strength, more who knows. But it is alarming. It is alarming. Do you know what I mean? Because you've got a situation here where, okay, then you've either got a complete and utter coincidence that it just so happens that not only do you have Bryan Kohberger going into a property wearing a ski mask and wielding a knife, where previously you had some other random person never to be found who entered a property with a ski mask wielding a knife, or you've got a situation where you've got someone who was never found and then they done this crime, and then you have the Bryan Kohberger situation that seemingly you now have something else to support, that something else is going on here. And look, this isn't about being a conspiracy theorist. This isn't about, trying to milk the case, which people still keep going on. I hope that you came over here and whinged about me still covering the Idaho 4 on your way to the likes of Brian Enton, who is still talking about the case, or even the lead prosecutor in the case who was doing his rounds. So fuck off. But look, let me know what you think down below. Do we have just this huge coincidence where this area seems to be breeding people who want to slap on balaclavas and go into each other's homes with knives? Or do we have a situation where perhaps we do have someone who is very dangerous and they are still out in the open? And could we find ourselves in a year's time with this kind of crime happening again? What would you all think then? Another coincidence? Let me know down below. I'll catch you all in the next one. Mwah.